A single insult can cost you millions, but Lucas Hale didn't need the money to prove his worth. Standing beside a rusted car that billionaires would kill to own, he watched a corporate executive mock him in front of his daughter. She had no idea what she'd just done. Neither did he, yet. This is the story of a man who never needed to explain himself, and the woman who learned too late that some things you can't buy back. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The morning light hit the scratched hood of Lucas Hale's sedan like it was trying to apologize for how bad the paint looked. Rust bloomed along the wheel wells in uneven patches. The passenger side mirror hung by electrical tape. The exhaust pipe rattled every time he turned the ignition, a low metallic cough that sounded like the car was clearing its throat before a long speech nobody wanted to hear. Lucas didn't mind. He'd heard worse. "Daddy, why does our car sound like that?" Emma asked from the back seat, her legs swinging above the floor mat, shoes still too big for her feet. "Like what, sweetheart?" "Like it's mad at us." Lucas glanced at her in the rearview mirror. 7 years old, gap-toothed smile. Hair pulled into 2 lopsided pigtails because he still hadn't figured out how to make them even. She was looking out the window, tracing shapes in the condensation with one finger. "It's not mad," Lucas said. "It's just old. Old things make noise. That's how you know they're still working. You don't make noise." "I'm not that old yet." Emma grinned. "Mommy said you're ancient." Lucas felt the familiar tug in his chest, the one that showed up whenever Emma mentioned her mother without realizing what it meant. He didn't correct her, didn't say that her mom had been gone for 4 years now, that the word said should have been past tense in a way that mattered. Kids had a way of keeping people alive in sentences. He wasn't going to be the one to kill that. "Your mommy was funny," Lucas said quietly. "I know." Emma went back to her window drawing. A star. Then a house. Then something that might have been a dog or a really bad cloud. Lucas turned onto Riverside Boulevard, where the buildings started growing taller and the cars started getting shinier. The neighborhood didn't belong to people like him. It belonged to people who wore watches that cost more than his annual income, who had assistants to pick up their dry cleaning, who didn't know what it felt like to choose between new shoes for your kid or fixing the carburetor. He pulled into the parking lot of Bennett and Cross Global Consulting, a glass tower that reflected the sky like it wanted to make sure everyone knew it was important. The lot was full of European sedans, electric SUVs, something low and red that looked like it had been designed by someone who hated speed limits. And then there was Lucas's car. He parked it near the back, away from the entrance, where it wouldn't offend anyone's morning. Emma unbuckled herself and climbed out, backpack nearly as big as she was. "You teaching today?" she asked. "Just dropping off some paperwork," Lucas said. "Then I'll take you to school." "Can we get pancakes after?" "Maybe." "That means yes." Lucas smiled despite himself. "That means maybe." They walked toward the building entrance. Emma held his hand, her palms small and sticky, probably from the granola bar she'd eaten in the car. Lucas didn't mind. He liked the weight of her trust, the way she didn't care that his jeans were faded or that his jacket had a torn pocket he kept meaning to sew. The lobby was all marble and indirect lighting, the kind of place that made you feel like you should whisper. A security guard nodded at Lucas as they passed. He'd been here before. Not often, but enough that people recognized him as the guy who came in through the side door, didn't make a fuss, did his work, and left. Lucas had been hired 3 months ago to consult on a vintage fleet acquisition. Bennett and Cross was trying to buy a private collection of rare automobiles from an estate in Europe, and they needed someone who could verify authenticity, spot forgeries, assess engineering value beyond market price. Lucas didn't advertise, didn't have a website, didn't do social media, but people in certain circles knew his name, collectors trusted him, auction houses called him when they needed a second opinion. He had a reputation for being quiet, thorough, and impossible to bribe. The receptionist waved him toward the elevator. "5th floor. Ms. Bennett's expecting the right estate documentation." "Thanks." The elevator was glass-walled, offering a view of the lobby as they ascended. Emma pressed her face to the glass. "It's like flying," she said. "Kind of. Except we're inside." "Yeah. And we're not going anywhere cool." Lucas laughed. "No, not today." The doors opened on the 5th floor. The hallway was wide, carpeted in charcoal gray, lined with black and white photographs of skylines and handshake deals. Lucas had always hated corporate art. It tried too hard to look important. He found the office he was looking for and knocked twice. "Come in." Lucas pushed the door open. The woman behind the desk didn't look up. She was typing something on her laptop, fingers moving fast, eyes locked on the screen. Mid-20s, dark hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked like it hurt. Suit jacket that probably cost more than Lucas's car. Aria Bennett. He'd met her once before, during the initial contract signing. She'd been polite but distant, the kind of person who shook your hand while already thinking about the next meeting. Lucas got the impression she didn't waste time on people unless they could do something for her. "Mr. Hale," she said without looking up. "You have the documentation?" "Right here." Lucas pulled a folder from his bag and set it on her desk. Aria glanced at it, then at Emma, who was standing beside Lucas, staring at a glass paperweight shaped like a diamond. "Is that your daughter?" "Yes." "She's quiet." "Sometimes." Aria finally looked at him. Her expression didn't change. "I'll review these and send feedback by end of week. Anything else?" "No." "Good. I'll have accounting process your payment." Lucas nodded. He didn't say thank you, didn't need to. This wasn't a favor. It was a job. He took Emma's hand and turned to leave. "Mr. Hale." Lucas paused. Aria was looking at him now, really looking, and there was something in her eyes he couldn't quite read. Not suspicion, not curiosity, something colder. "That car in the lot," she said slowly, "the one that looks like it's held together with duct tape and hope. That's yours, isn't it?" Lucas felt Emma's hand tighten around his. "Yeah," he said. "It's mine." Aria leaned back in her chair, a faint smile pulling at the corner of her mouth. Not a kind smile, not a warm one. "I'm surprised it made it here," she said. "You should really consider an upgrade. It's not a good look." Lucas didn't respond. He just stood there, holding his daughter's hand, waiting for Aria to finish whatever point she was trying to make. "I mean, I get it," Aria continued, her tone casual, like she was discussing the weather. "Not everyone can afford something decent, but if you're consulting for a firm like ours, you might want to think about presentation. Clients notice these things." Lucas felt the words settle in the space between them. He'd heard worse. He'd been judged before. He'd stood in rooms full of people who thought they were better than him because they had more money, more polish, more of whatever it was that made them feel superior. But Emma was 7, and she was listening. "Daddy," Emma whispered, "can we go?" Lucas looked down at her. Her eyes were wide, uncertain. She didn't understand what was happening, but she understood the tone. She understood that someone was being mean. He squeezed her hand gently. "Yeah, sweetheart, we can go." He turned and walked out of the office without another word. Behind him, he heard Aria's chair creak as she turned back to her computer, already moving on to the next thing. They didn't talk on the way to the car. Emma climbed into the back seat and buckled herself in, quiet now, her earlier energy gone. Lucas started the engine. The exhaust coughed. The mirror wobbled. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Why did that lady say our car is bad?" Lucas gripped the steering wheel. He didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know how to explain that some people measured worth in things that didn't matter, that they built walls out of money and status and forgot what it felt like to be on the other side. "She doesn't know anything about our car," Lucas said finally, but she said, "I know what she said." Lucas's voice was quiet, but firm. "And she's wrong." Emma looked out the window. "It is kind of ugly, though." Lucas laughed, a short, tired sound. "Yeah, it is. But it's ours." "Yeah, sweetheart, it's ours." He pulled out of the parking lot and onto Riverside Boulevard, leaving the glass tower behind. The car rattled, the mirror shook, the engine hummed its rough, uneven tune, and Lucas drove. Pug. 3 weeks later. Lucas was under the hood of a 1965 Mustang when his phone rang. He didn't hear it at first. The garage radio was playing some old Creedence Clearwater Revival song, and the fan in the corner was loud enough to drown out most things. But the phone kept ringing, vibrating against the metal workbench until it finally clattered onto the floor. Lucas wiped his hands on a rag and picked it up. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pause. "Hello?" Mr. Hale, this is Dominic Cross, managing partner at Bennett and Cross. Lucas straightened. He'd never spoken to Cross directly. The man was a name on a letterhead, a signature at the bottom of contracts. He didn't make phone calls to consultants. What can I do for you? Lucas asked. I need you to come in, today, if possible. For what? There's been a development with the Wright estate acquisition, something we didn't anticipate. Lucas frowned. What kind of development? I'd rather discuss it in person. Can you be here in an hour? Lucas glanced at the Mustang. He'd promised the owner he'd have it done by tomorrow, but Cross didn't sound like someone who was used to hearing no. I'll be there, Lucas said. Good. Ask for me at the front desk. The line went dead. Lucas set the phone down and stared at it for a moment, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Then he grabbed his jacket, locked up the garage, and headed for the door. Bapme. An hour later, Lucas was back in the glass tower, sitting in a conference room that overlooked the city. The table was long, polished to a mirror shine. There were bottles of water in the center, each one branded with the firm's logo. Dominic Cross sat at the head of the table. 50s. Silver hair. Suit that looked like it had been tailored by someone who charged by the stitch. He had the kind of face that didn't give anything away, the kind that had been trained over decades of negotiations and boardroom battles. Aria Bennett sat to his right. She didn't look at Lucas when he walked in. Mr. Hale, Cross said, gesturing to a chair. Thank you for coming on short notice. Lucas sat. What's this about? Cross slid a folder across the table. The Wright estate. We've run into a problem. Lucas opened the folder. Inside were photographs of cars, vintage models, rare editions, some of them worth 7 figures. But one photo stood out. A 1971 prototype. Custom build. No badges. No manufacturer logo. Lucas's chest tightened. Where did you get this? He asked quietly. It's part of the estate, Cross said, but we can't verify its origin. No records. No documentation. The seller claims it was commissioned privately, built by an independent engineer in the early 70s, but we have no way to authenticate that. Lucas stared at the photo. He knew this car. He knew it because his father had built it. Why are you showing me this? Lucas asked, his voice carefully neutral. Because, Cross said, leaning forward, if this car is what the seller claims, it's worth more than everything else in the collection combined. But if it's a fake, or if we can't prove its legitimacy, the entire deal falls apart. We need an expert, and you're the only one we trust. Lucas looked up. What do you need me to do? Examine it, verify it, tell us if it's real. And if it is, Cross smiled, then you'll have done us a very valuable service. Lucas glanced at Aria. She was still looking at her notes, her expression unreadable. When do you need an answer? Lucas asked. 2 weeks, Cross said. There's an exhibition in Prague. The car will be on display. We'll fly you out, cover expenses, pay your full rate plus a bonus if you can confirm authenticity. Lucas closed the folder. I'll think about it. Cross's smile faded slightly. Mr. Hale, I don't think you understand. This is a significant opportunity. I understand, Lucas said. I just need to think about it. He stood, picked up the folder, and walked out. That night, Lucas sat at his kitchen table, the folder open in front of him. Emma was asleep upstairs. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old wood settling. Lucas stared at the photograph. His father had built this car 40 years ago, in a garage not much bigger than the one Lucas worked in now. It had been a passion project, something done late at night after long shifts at the factory. His father had poured everything into it, his skill, his creativity, his hope that maybe, just maybe, he could build something that mattered. He'd finished it 6 months before he died. Lucas had been 12. He'd watched his father work on that car for years, handing him tools, learning the names of parts, listening to stories about compression ratios and fuel injection and the perfect weight distribution. His father had never sold it, never showed it, never even drove it much. It's not about the car, his father had told him once. It's about what you put into it. Lucas hadn't understood at the time, but he did now. He closed the folder and pulled out his phone. He typed a message to Cross. I'll do it. Then he set the phone down and sat in the quiet, thinking about his father, about the car, about the woman who had mocked him in a parking lot 3 weeks ago. And he wondered what she would say when she found out the truth. Chimbolshets, Prague. 2 weeks later. The exhibition hall was massive, a converted industrial space with vaulted ceilings and exposed steel beams. Vintage cars lined the floor in neat rows, each one spotlit like a piece of art. Collectors moved between them in small clusters, speaking in low voices, pointing at details, taking notes. Lucas walked slowly through the hall, hands in his pockets, eyes moving over the vehicles with practiced precision. He'd been to events like this before, though usually on the periphery, brought in quietly to verify a claim or inspect a restoration. He didn't belong to this world. He just understood it. A voice called his name. Lucas turned. Aria Bennett was walking toward him, dressed in a dark blazer and slacks, her expression somewhere between neutral and annoyed. "Mr. Hale," she said, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Cross sent me," Lucas said. "I know. I'm the one who arranged your travel." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You didn't mention that on the phone." "I didn't think it mattered." They stood there for a moment, neither one quite sure what to say. "Look," Aria said finally, "about what I said at the office, I was—" "Forget it," Lucas said. "I'm trying to apologize." "I said forget it." Aria's jaw tightened. "You don't make this easy, do you?" "I'm not trying to make anything," Lucas said. "I'm here to do a job. That's it." He turned and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the middle of the hall. The prototype was in the back corner, cordoned off with velvet ropes. A small placard sat beside it, listing the year, the specs, the estimated value. Lucas stopped in front of it and felt something shift in his chest. It was exactly as he remembered. The lines, the shape, the way the body curved at the rear fender. His father had spent months getting that curve right, adjusting it by fractions of an inch until it looked like it had always been meant to exist that way. Lucas stepped closer. He ran his hand along the hood, feeling the cool metal under his palm. No scratches, no dents. Whoever had owned it had kept it perfect. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Lucas turned. An older man stood beside him, 70s, white hair, expensive coat. He had the look of someone who had spent a lifetime around rare things. "It is," Lucas said. "Do you know anything about it?" the man asked. Lucas hesitated. "A little. I've been trying to find out who built it for years," the man said. "No records, no signature. Just this car, sitting in a private collection, untouched. It's a mystery." Lucas looked at the car. His father had never signed his work, never put his name on anything. He'd said that the work should speak for itself. "It's not a mystery," Lucas said quietly. The man frowned. "What do you mean?" Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal tool, a custom wrench, worn smooth from years of use. His father had made it, had used it to build this car. He knelt beside the rear panel and found the hidden latch, the one his father had installed so that the engine cover could be removed without external bolts. He pressed it, and the panel released with a soft click. The man's eyes widened. Lucas lifted the panel. Underneath, engraved into the frame in small, precise letters, was a name. Samuel Hale, 1971. The man stared. "Who are you?" he asked. Lucas stood, replacing the panel carefully. "Someone who knows what he's looking at." He walked away, leaving the old man standing there, speechless. By the time Lucas reached the exit, Aria was waiting for him. "I saw what you did," she said. Lucas didn't stop walking. "Good for you. That car was built by my father." Aria froze. Lucas turned to face her. "You want to know why I drive the car I drive?" he said, his voice quiet but steady. "Because it's the only thing I have left of him. Because he built the engine with his own hands. Because it doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. What matters is what's inside." Aria opened her mouth, then closed it. Lucas took a step closer. "You judged me," he said. "You judged my car. You did it in front of my daughter, and you did it because you thought you knew what you were looking at. But you didn't." He turned and walked out into the cold Prague night, leaving Aria standing in the doorway, her face pale, her hand shaking. And for the first time in a long time, Lucas felt like he'd said exactly what needed to be said. The flight back from Prague felt longer than it should have. Lucas sat by the window, watching clouds drift past like they had nowhere important to be. His phone was off. He didn't want to think about emails or messages or whatever fallout was waiting for him when he landed. He just wanted the quiet hum of the engines and the feeling of being suspended between one place and another. But quiet never lasted. The man sitting next to him, mid-50s, expensive watch, wedding ring that probably cost more than Lucas's mortgage, kept glancing over. Not subtly. The kind of looking that meant he wanted to start a conversation. Lucas ignored him. "You were at the exhibition," the man said finally. Lucas didn't turn. "Yeah, I saw what you did. With the prototype." Now Lucas looked at him. The man's face was familiar. One of the collectors probably. Someone who'd been standing near the velvet ropes, watching. "And?" Lucas said. "That was Samuel Hale's work, wasn't it?" Lucas felt something tighten in his chest. "How do you know that name?" The man smiled, the kind of smile that said he knew he had information Lucas wanted. "I've been collecting for 30 years. Hale's name comes up in certain circles. Never confirmed, always rumored. The ghost builder, the engineer who walked away from everything." "He didn't walk away," Lucas said quietly. "He just didn't care about being famous." The man studied him. "You're his son." It wasn't a question. Lucas didn't answer. "There are people," the man continued, "who would pay a fortune just to know what else he built. If there are other prototypes, other designs." "There aren't." "How do you know?" "Because I helped him build that car," Lucas said. "And it was the only one." The man leaned back, processing that. "Then you're sitting on something priceless, Mr. Hale. That car in Prague? Once word gets out that it's authenticated, the bidding will start at 8 figures, maybe more." Lucas turned back to the window. "It's not for sale." "Everything's for sale." "Not that." The man didn't push. He just handed Lucas a business card. Thick, embossed, the kind that screamed money. "If you change your mind..." Lucas took it without looking and slipped it into his jacket pocket, already knowing he'd throw it away later. When the plane landed, Lucas grabbed his bag and walked through the terminal like he was trying to outrun something. He didn't check his phone until he was in the parking garage, standing next to his car, the same rusted sedan that had started all of this. 17 missed calls, 12 voicemails, 23 emails, all from Bennett and Cross. Lucas exhaled slowly and opened the first voicemail. Dominic Cross's voice, measured and calm. "Mr. Hale, we need to discuss your findings. Please call me as soon as you land." The second message, less calm. "Lucas, it's Dominic. I've been contacted by 3 separate parties asking about the Prague prototype. Whatever you did over there, it's made waves. We need to talk strategy." The third message wasn't from Cross. It was Arya. Her voice was quieter than he'd ever heard it. "Mr. Hale, Look, I don't know if you're going to listen to this, but I owe you more than an apology. I owe you an explanation. Can we meet? Just the 2 of us. No firm, no agenda. Just, please." Lucas stood there in the cold parking garage staring at his phone. He deleted all the messages except hers. Then he drove home. Basit. Emma was waiting on the front porch when he pulled into the driveway. She jumped up the second she saw the car, backpack bouncing against her shoulders as she ran down the steps. "Daddy!" Lucas got out and caught her as she launched herself at him, arms wrapping around his waist. He held her tight, breathing in the smell of strawberry shampoo and playground dust. "I missed you," she said into his jacket. "I missed you too, kiddo." "Did you see cool cars?" "A few." "Cooler than ours?" Lucas smiled. "Not even close." Emma pulled back and looked up at him, eyes serious. "Mrs. Winters said you were working. She made me mac and cheese, the kind from the box." "Was it good?" "It was okay." Emma wrinkled her nose. "But she put peas in it. That's a crime." "That's what I said." Lucas laughed and ruffled her hair. "Come on, let's get inside." They walked up the porch steps together, Emma chattering about school and a boy named Tyler who apparently thought he could run faster than everyone but couldn't, and how her teacher, Mrs. Parker, had let them do art with real watercolors instead of crayons. Lucas listened to all of it, letting her voice wash over him like a remedy for the noise in his head. Inside, the house smelled like old wood and something faintly sweet, probably the candle Mrs. Winters had left burning on the kitchen counter. Lucas set his bag down and checked the mail. Bills, a flyer for a pizza place that had closed 2 years ago, a postcard from his cousin in Oregon. Nothing important. Emma tugged on his sleeve. Can we have pancakes now? Now? You said maybe before you left. Maybe means yes. Lucas sighed. I said maybe means maybe. But you're home now, so maybe can be yes. He looked down at her, at the gap-toothed grin and the hopeful eyes, and felt the last of his resistance crumble. Fine, he said. Pancakes. Emma cheered and ran to the kitchen, already pulling out the mixing bowl before Lucas had even taken off his jacket. They ate pancakes at the kitchen table, Emma drowning hers in syrup while Lucas stuck to butter and a light drizzle. She told him about a drawing she'd made at school, a house with a crooked chimney and a car in the driveway that looked more like a rectangle with wheels. That's us, she said, pointing at 2 stick figures standing next to the car. One tall, one short. It's perfect, Lucas said. Mrs. Parker said the car looks sad. Lucas paused, fork halfway to his mouth. Sad? Yeah, she said it looks like it's frowning. Lucas looked at the drawing. The car did kind of look like it was frowning. The front grille, the way Emma had drawn it, dipped down in the middle. Cars don't have feelings, Lucas said. I know, but if they did, I think ours would be happy. Why's that? Emma shrugged. Because it gets to be with us. Lucas felt something catch in his throat. He set his fork down and reached across the table, squeezing Emma's hand gently. Yeah, he said quietly. I think you're right. Facts. Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, Lucas sat in the garage with the hood of his car open. He wasn't fixing anything. He just liked being out here, surrounded by tools and the smell of oil and metal. It was where he did his best thinking. His phone buzzed. He almost didn't look, but something made him pick it up. A text from an unknown number. This is Aria Bennett. I got your number from Dominic. I know I don't have the right to ask, but can we meet tomorrow? There's a coffee shop on 5th and Laurel. 10 a.m. I'll be there whether you show up or not. Lucas read the message twice. Then he set the phone down and went back to staring at the engine. He showed up at 10:15. The coffee shop was small, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, the kind of place that served drinks in actual ceramic mugs instead of paper cups. Aria was already there, sitting at a table by the window, hands wrapped around a cup like she was trying to keep warm. She looked different. No suit jacket, no tight bun, just jeans and a sweater, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, tired. Lucas walked over and sat down without saying anything. Aria looked up. You came. You noticed. She almost smiled. Almost. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't either. A waitress came by and Lucas ordered black coffee. Aria waited until the waitress left before speaking again. I've been thinking about what you said, Aria started. In Prague. About your father. About the car. Lucas didn't respond. Just waited. I was wrong, Aria continued. Not just about the car. About you. About everything I assumed. She paused, fingers tightening around her mug. I've spent my entire career judging things by their surface. It's what I was trained to do. Market value, presentation, first impressions. I got good at it. Really good. And I forgot that there's a difference between being good at something and being right. Lucas took a sip of his coffee. It was too hot, burned his tongue a little. He didn't care. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because I owe you more than an apology, Aria said. I owe you the truth. When I saw you in that parking lot, when I saw your car, I made a snap judgment. I thought I knew what I was looking at. And I said something cruel because it made me feel superior, because it was easy. And now? Now I know I was looking at something I didn't understand. Aria's voice cracked slightly. Your father built that prototype. You helped him, and you've been driving around in a car that's worth more than my condo because it means something to you that has nothing to do with money. Lucas set his cup down. You looked into it. I did some research after Prague, asked around. Turns out your father wasn't just some unknown builder. He was a legend. He just never wanted anyone to know. Aria leaned forward. Do you have any idea how many people are trying to find you right now? Collectors, museums, private buyers. They want to know what else Samuel Hale built. They want to know if there are blueprints, designs, anything. There's nothing, Lucas said flatly. I know. I already told them that. But they don't believe me. Arya hesitated. Dominic wants to represent you. He thinks you could broker deals, consult on authentication, maybe even… No, Lucas. I said no. His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. I'm not interested in turning my father's work into a business opportunity. I'm not interested in being the guy who validates rich people's toys so they can feel special. Arya sat back. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was softer. I don't know what I meant. I'm still figuring this out. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, people walked past the window, caught up in their own lives, their own problems. The world kept moving whether you were ready or not. Why did you really want to meet? Lucas asked. Arya looked at him. Because I saw the way your daughter looked at you, in the parking lot. When I said those things, she didn't understand what I was saying, but she understood that someone was being mean to her dad, and she held your hand tighter. Lucas felt something shift in his chest. I don't have kids, Arya continued. I don't know what that's like, but I know what it's like to be judged. And I know what it's like to judge other people to make yourself feel better, and I'm tired of it. She took a shaky breath. I don't know if we can be friends. I don't even know if you want that. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because it's good for business or because Dominic told me to clean up the mess I made, but because it's true. Lucas studied her face. She wasn't lying. He'd spent enough time around people who lied for a living to know the difference. Okay, he said finally. Arya blinked. Okay? You apologized. I heard you. We're done. That's it? What else do you want? Arya laughed, a short, surprised sound. I don't know. I thought you'd yell, or tell me to go to hell. I'm too tired to yell, Lucas said, and telling you to go to hell won't change anything. He stood up, pulling a few bills from his wallet and leaving them on the table. Arya stood too. Lucas, wait. He paused. The exhibition, she said. It's not over. There's a second showing in 2 weeks. New York, bigger venue, more buyers. Dominic wants you there. He thinks… I don't care what Dominic thinks. Just hear me out. Arya stepped closer. That prototype. Your father's car. It's going to be the centerpiece. And people are going to ask questions. They're going to want to know who built it, why it matters, what makes it different. You're the only person who can answer those questions. Lucas shook his head. Find someone else. There is no one else. You're Samuel Hale's son. You were there when he built it. You know things no one else knows. That's exactly why I'm not doing it, Lucas said. Because the second I start talking, it stops being about the car. It starts being about the story. And then the story becomes a product. And I'm not selling my father's life to people who wouldn't have given him the time of day when he was alive. Arya opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. Lucas turned and walked toward the door. He'd be proud of you, Arya called after him. Lucas stopped. Your father, Arya said, he'd be proud of you for protecting what he built, for not letting people turn it into something it's not. Lucas didn't turn around. He just stood there for a moment, hand on the door, letting her words settle. Then he pushed the door open and walked out into the cold morning air. Okit. The call came 3 days later. Lucas was in the garage finishing up the Mustang restoration when his phone rang. He almost didn't answer, but the name on the screen made him pause. Mrs. Winters, Emma's babysitter. He picked up immediately. Everything okay? Lucas, her voice was tight. Emma's fine, but you need to come to the school, now. What happened? There was an incident. She got into a fight. Lucas's stomach dropped. A fight? Emma? Just get here. I'll explain when you arrive. The line went dead. Lucas grabbed his keys and ran. Botekak. The principal's office smelled like stale coffee and old carpet. Emma sat in a chair that was too big for her, legs swinging, face streaked with dried tears. Her right hand was wrapped in a paper towel, a small smear of blood seeping through. Lucas knelt in front of her. What happened? Emma didn't answer, just looked at the floor. The principal, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and a tired expression, cleared her throat. Mr. Hale, your daughter got into an altercation with another student. She hit him. She what? She punched Tyler Morrison in the nose. Lucas looked at Emma, who was still staring at the floor, her jaw set in a way that reminded him uncomfortably of himself. Why? Lucas asked. The principal hesitated. According to witnesses, Tyler made a comment about your car. Emma took offense. Lucas felt something cold settle in his chest. What kind of comment? He called it trash, Emma said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. He said only poor people drive cars like that. He said you were probably too broke to buy a real one. The room went silent. Lucas closed his eyes and took a slow breath. And then what happened? He asked, his voice carefully controlled. I told him to shut up, Emma said. But he didn't. He kept saying it. He said other kids were laughing about it, so I hit him. Emma, I know it was wrong, her voice cracked. I know I'm not supposed to hit people, but he was being mean about you, Daddy, and I didn't know what else to do. Lucas pulled her into a hug, feeling her small body shake against his. She was crying now, quiet sobs that broke something inside him. The principal shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Hale, I understand this is difficult, but we have a zero-tolerance policy for violence. Emma will need to serve a 3-day suspension. Lucas pulled back and looked at the principal. The other kid, Tyler, what happens to him? He'll receive a verbal warning for his comments. A warning. Yes. Lucas stood slowly. So my daughter defends me after being bullied, and she gets suspended, but the kid who started it gets a warning. Mr. Hale, I understand your frustration, but no, Lucas said, his voice hard. You don't. You have no idea what it's like to be judged every single day because of something as stupid as the car you drive. You have no idea what it's like to watch your kid absorb that judgment and internalize it until she feels like she has to fight to protect you. The principal straightened. Mr. Hale, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. Lucas didn't lower his voice. My daughter is 7 years old. She shouldn't have to deal with this. And the fact that your school thinks a verbal warning is enough for the kid who caused this is exactly the problem. Mr. Hale, we're done here. Lucas took Emma's hand. Come on, sweetheart. They walked out of the office together, Emma's small hand gripping his tightly. But in the car, Emma was quiet. Lucas didn't push her to talk. He just drove, letting the familiar rattle of the engine fill the silence. After a while, Emma spoke. Am I in trouble? Lucas glanced at her in the rearview mirror. What do you think? I think yes. You're right. Emma's face crumpled. I'm sorry, Daddy. I know I shouldn't have hit him, but I was so mad. I know you were, Lucas said. And I'm not saying Tyler didn't deserve it, but hitting people isn't how we solve problems. Then how do we solve them? Lucas didn't have a good answer for that. How did you solve a problem like judgment, like people who measured worth in dollars and status and things that didn't matter? You walk away, he said finally. You remember who you are and what matters. And you don't let people like Tyler make you feel small. Emma sniffled. But what if they keep saying it? Then they keep saying it, and you keep walking. That's not fair. No, Lucas agreed quietly. It's not. They pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment, the engine ticking as it cooled. Daddy? Emma's voice was small. Yeah? Do you wish we had a different car? Lucas turned in his seat to look at her. No, I don't. Why not? Lucas thought about his father, about the prototype in Prague, about the people who saw value only in things they could sell. Because this car, he said slowly, is the only thing I have that was built by someone who loved me, and that makes it worth more than any car in the world. Emma looked at him, eyes wide and serious. Even a Ferrari? Lucas smiled. Even a Ferrari? Even a spaceship? Spaceships aren't cars. They could be. Fair point. But yes, even a spaceship. Emma nodded, satisfied. Then she unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed over the center console, wrapping her arms around Lucas's neck. I love you, Daddy. Lucas held her tight. I love you too, kiddo. They sat there in the driveway, holding each other, while the world kept spinning and the car kept sitting and nothing changed except the way Lucas felt about all of it. What? That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Lucas sat on the back porch with a beer he wasn't really drinking. His phone was inside, deliberately out of reach. He didn't want to think about work or exhibitions or people who wanted something from him. He just wanted to sit in the quiet and breathe. But the quiet didn't last. A car pulled up in front of the house. Lucas heard the engine cut off, heard a door open and close. Footsteps on the walkway. He stood up and walked around to the front. Arya was standing on his porch, hands shoved in her jacket pockets, looking uncertain. "How did you get my address?" Lucas asked. "Dominic's assistant. Don't be mad at her. I may have implied it was urgent." "Was it?" Arya hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe. I heard about what happened at Emma's school." Lucas stiffened. "How us? Small town. Word travels. Especially when it involves a consultant who just authenticated an 8-figure prototype." Arya took a step closer. "Is she okay?" "She's fine." "And you?" Lucas didn't answer. Arya looked down at her shoes. "I came here to tell you something. I quit." Lucas blinked. "What?" "I quit. This morning. Gave Dominic my resignation. Told him I was done." "Why?" "Because I've been thinking about what you said. About not turning your father's work into a business opportunity. About protecting what matters." Arya looked up at him. "I've spent my entire career chasing the wrong things, trying to prove I was valuable by associating myself with valuable things. And it made me cruel. It made me someone I don't want to be." Lucas leaned against the porch railing. "So you quit?" "So I quit." "What are you going to do now?" Arya laughed, a tired sound. "I have no idea. For the first time in my life, I have no plan, no strategy, no 5-year roadmap. And it's terrifying." They stood there in the dim porch light, two people who barely knew each other, connected by a moment that had changed everything. "For what it's worth," Lucas said quietly, "I think you made the right call." Arya smiled. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She nodded, then turned to leave. "Arya." She stopped. "If you need a reference," Lucas said, "for whatever comes next, I'll vouch for you." Arya's smile widened. "Even after everything?" "Especially after everything." She walked back to her car, and Lucas watched her drive away, taillights fading into the darkness. Then he went inside, checked on Emma one more time, and finally let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, some things could change after all. The New York exhibition opened on a Thursday, and Lucas had no intention of attending. He'd told Dominic as much in an email that was probably more blunt than it needed to be. But 3 days before the event, a package arrived at his door. No return address, just his name in a box wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a leather-bound journal, pages yellowed with age, the cover worn smooth from years of handling. Lucas recognized it immediately. His father's design notebook, the one that had gone missing after the estate sale, the one Lucas had assumed was lost forever. There was a note tucked inside the front cover, written in careful handwriting. "Mr. Hale, this belonged to your father. It was acquired along with the prototype, but I believe it belongs with you, not in a collection. No strings attached, just thought you should have it. Voss." Lucas sat at the kitchen table and opened the notebook carefully. Page after page of sketches, notes, calculations. His father's handwriting, small and precise, filling every margin. Designs for engines that had never been built. Ideas for suspension systems. Drawings of curves and angles. Annotated with measurements and questions. On one page, dated 1970, there was a sketch of the prototype. Underneath, in his father's handwriting, "For Lucas. So he remembers that some things are worth more than money." Lucas's hand shook as he turned the page. The next entry was dated a week later. A single sentence. "He helped me today. Didn't complain once. He's going to be better than me." Lucas closed the notebook and set it down gently, like it might break if he wasn't careful. He sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of something he couldn't name. Emma came downstairs in her pajamas, hair sticking up in 3 different directions. "Daddy? Why are you crying?" Lucas wiped his eyes quickly. "I'm not crying." "You are, though." He looked at her and gave up pretending. "Yeah, I guess I am." Emma climbed into his lap, small and warm and exactly what he needed. Is it a sad cry or a happy cry? I don't know yet. That's okay. You don't have to know everything. Lucas laughed, a wet sound. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just forget sometimes. He held her close and decided that maybe he did need to go to New York after all. The venue was in Manhattan, a converted warehouse in Chelsea with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough polished concrete to make everything echo. Lucas arrived alone, wearing the same jacket he'd worn to Prague and jeans that were clean, but definitely not new. He felt out of place the second he walked through the door. The crowd was different here. Bigger, louder. People in tailored suits and designer dresses, holding champagne flutes and speaking in the kind of voices that assumed everyone was listening. Lucas spotted Dominic Cross near the center of the room, shaking hands with a woman in a red dress who looked like she owned half of something important. Lucas didn't go over. He just moved through the crowd, keeping his head down, looking for the prototype. He found it in the back corner, same velvet ropes, same small placard. But this time there was something new. A second placard, larger, with a detailed description. Prototype commissioned by Samuel Hale, independent automotive engineer 1971. One of a kind. Engine design revolutionary for its time. Authenticated by Lucas Hale, Samuel Hale's son, and leading expert in vintage automotive engineering. Lucas stared at the placard. Leading expert. He almost laughed. They took some liberties with the wording. Lucas turned. Arya was standing beside him, dressed in dark slacks and a simple blouse, hair pulled back in a way that looked deliberate but not harsh. She looked different. Calmer, maybe. Less like she was trying to prove something. You're here, Lucas said. I was invited. Dominic doesn't know I quit yet. I think he assumes I'm still on the payroll. Are you going to tell him? Eventually, but not tonight. Arya looked at the prototype. How does it feel, seeing it here? Lucas didn't answer right away. He just stood there, looking at the car his father had built, the car he'd spent years learning to understand. It looked smaller here, surrounded by other expensive things, reduced to an object that people could bid on. Wrong, he said finally. It feels wrong. Arya nodded slowly. I thought you might say that. They stood in silence for a moment, watching people drift past, pointing at the car, taking photos, talking in hushed tones about market value and investment potential. I brought something, Lucas said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the leather notebook, holding it carefully. My father's design journal. Someone sent it to me. I don't know what I thought, that maybe it belonged here, but now I'm not sure. Arya's eyes widened. Can I see it? Lucas hesitated, then handed it to her. She opened it carefully, turning pages slowly, her expression shifting as she read. When she looked up, her eyes were bright. Lucas, this is incredible. These designs, some of them are decades ahead of their time. Do you know what this is worth? I know exactly what it's worth, Lucas said quietly. That's why I'm not selling it. Arya closed the notebook and handed it back. Then why did you bring it? Because I wanted to see if I was wrong. If maybe my father would have wanted this. The recognition, the attention, the chance for people to see what he built. Lucas looked at the prototype. But he wouldn't have. He would have hated this. All of it. So why are you here? Lucas met her eyes. Because I needed to say no, out loud. To all of it. So there's no question. Before Arya could respond, Dominic Cross appeared beside them, smiling in that practiced way that never quite reached his eyes. Lucas, I'm glad you made it. And I see you've brought something interesting. His gaze landed on the notebook in Lucas's hands. It's not for sale, Lucas said. Dominic's smile didn't waver. I wasn't going to ask, but I am curious. Is that Samuel Hale's design work? Yes. May I? Lucas handed him the notebook, watching as Dominic flipped through it with the careful reverence of someone who understood value when he saw it. Extraordinary, Dominic murmured. Lucas, you realize what you have here. This isn't just a collection of sketches. This is a historical document. Museums would pay. I'm not interested. Dominic looked up. I haven't made an offer yet. You don't need to. The answer is no. The smile finally slipped. Lucas, I understand you have sentimental attachment to your father's work. But there's a difference between honoring his legacy and hiding it. These designs deserve to be seen, studied, preserved. They will be, Lucas said. By me. And eventually by my daughter, but they're not going to be locked in a glass case so rich people can feel cultured. Dominic's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. You could be set for life. Your daughter could have opportunities you never... Don't, Lucas said, his voice sharp. Don't talk about my daughter. You don't know anything about what she needs. The people nearby had stopped talking. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. Dominic handed the notebook back. I'm trying to help you, Lucas. No, you're not. You're trying to make money off my father's work. There's a difference. Dominic opened his mouth, then closed it. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. The prototype is going to auction tomorrow. Final sale. Once it's sold, you'll have no claim to it. No say in what happens to it. I know. And you're fine with that? Lucas looked at the car one more time. My father built that car because he loved building things. Not because he wanted to get rich. Not because he wanted recognition. He built it because it mattered to him. And that's all that matters to me. He turned and walked away, leaving Dominic standing there, speechless. Arya caught up with him near the exit. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the dumbest, she said. Lucas almost smiled. Probably both. What are you going to do now? Go home. Make my daughter pancakes. Forget this place exists. Arya grabbed his arm gently. Wait. Before you go, there's something you should know. Lucas stopped. The buyer, Arya said. The one who's been pushing hardest for the prototype. His name is Victor Hastings. He's a collector, but not the good kind. He buys rare pieces and locks them away. Doesn't display them, doesn't share them, just hoards them because he can. So if he wins the auction tomorrow, that car, your father's car, disappears. No one will ever see it again. It'll sit in some climate-controlled vault, appreciating in value, completely forgotten. Lucas felt something cold settle in his stomach. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're walking away from. And because, Arya hesitated, because I think there might be another option. I'm listening. There's a museum, a small one, privately funded, in Detroit. They specialize in automotive history, independent builders. The people who change the industry without ever becoming famous. I know the director. She's good people. If you wanted, if you were willing, you could donate the prototype. Not sell it. Donate it. It would be displayed properly. Protected. And people could see it, learn from it. Lucas stared at her. Why would you help me with that? Because you were right, about all of it, and because I spent too many years caring about the wrong things. Arya's voice softened. Let me do this. Please. Let me help fix something I helped break. Lucas looked back at the exhibition hall, at the people milling around, at the car sitting under the lights, at the whole expensive, hollow spectacle of it. Set up a meeting, he said, with the museum director, but I want to talk to her first, make sure she understands what this is. Arya smiled. I'll make the call tonight. Opats. The auction was scheduled for Friday at noon. Lucas didn't attend. He stayed home, working on the Mustang in his garage, trying not to think about what was happening in Manhattan. But at 12:47, his phone rang. It was Arya. It's done, she said. Lucas set down his wrench. What's done? The auction. Hastings was winning. He'd bid up to $12 million. No one else was even close. Arya paused. And then someone made a different offer. What kind of offer? A donation offer. The Detroit Museum stepped in. They can't buy it outright, but they made a proposal to the estate. Full tax deduction, public acknowledgement, permanent display with Samuel Hale's name front and center. The estate accepted. Lucas sat down on the garage floor, phone pressed to his ear, not quite believing what he was hearing. How did they even know to make the offer? He asked. I may have called the director last night, explained the situation. She jumped on it. Apparently she's been trying to acquire pieces like this for years. Lucas laughed, a short, surprised sound. You did this. We did this. You're the one who said no to the money. I just helped find a better yes. Arya, don't thank me, seriously. This was the least I could do. She paused. There's one more thing. The museum wants you to be there for the unveiling. They want you to tell your father's story in your own words. Lucas closed his eyes. When? 3 weeks. I can send you the details. Okay? Okay? Yeah, okay. He could hear the smile in her voice. I'll email you tonight. After she hung up, Lucas sat there for a long time, staring at the oil-stained concrete floor, feeling something shift inside him. It wasn't relief. It wasn't happiness. It was something quieter, something that felt like letting go. Emma's suspension ended on Monday. Lucas walked her to the classroom door, her hand small in his, her backpack bouncing with each step. You ready? He asked. Emma nodded, but she looked nervous. What if Tyler says something again? Then you remember what we talked about. You walk away. You don't let him make you feel small. But what if he doesn't stop? Lucas knelt down so they were eye level. Then you come find me. Or you tell Mrs. Parker, but you don't hit him. Deal? Emma sighed. Deal. Good girl. She started to walk into the classroom, then turned back. Daddy? Yeah? Are you still sad? About the car. Lucas thought about the prototype, about the auction, about the museum in Detroit that would keep his father's work safe. He thought about Aria, about the way she'd changed, about the second chance she'd given herself. No, he said. I'm not sad anymore. Emma smiled. Good. She ran into the classroom, and Lucas stood there for a moment, watching her go. When he got back to the car, there was a note tucked under the windshield wiper. He unfolded it, expecting a parking ticket or some kind of complaint. Instead, it was a handwritten message. Mr. Hale, I heard about what happened in New York, about the museum. That took guts. If you ever want to grab coffee and talk about building things that matter instead of things that sell, give me a call. Rachel Mora, Detroit Auto Heritage Museum. There was a phone number at the bottom. Lucas folded the note carefully and slipped it into his pocket. Then he got in the car, started the engine, and drove home. The old sedan rattling and coughing and sounding exactly like it always had. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The weeks that followed were quieter. Lucas went back to work, finishing the Mustang, taking on a few new clients, doing the kind of steady, reliable work that paid the bills and kept the lights on. Emma went back to school, and there were no more incidents with Tyler. Apparently his parents had gotten involved, and the kid had been grounded for a month. Emma didn't gloat about it, but Lucas could tell she felt vindicated. Aria called every few days, usually in the evening, and they talked about things that had nothing to do with cars or exhibitions or money. She told him about her job search, about how hard it was to figure out what she wanted when she'd spent so many years chasing what other people expected. Lucas told her about Emma, about the Mustang, about the garage that needed a new roof before winter. They weren't friends exactly, but they were something. Two people who'd collided in the worst way possible and somehow found a way to build something better from the wreckage. One evening, Aria called with news. I got a job, she said. Yeah? Doing what? Working for a nonprofit. They help small businesses get access to capital, microloans, mentorship programs, that kind of thing. It's not glamorous. The pay is terrible compared to what I was making. But it feels, I don't know, real. Lucas smiled. I'm happy for you. Thanks. I start next week. She paused. I also talked to the museum. The unveiling is set for the 15th. They're expecting about 200 people, press, collectors, students from the local engineering school. Lucas's stomach tightened. That's a lot of people. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. Rachel said they can handle the presentation, but she thought, and I agree, that it would mean more coming from you. Lucas didn't respond right away. The thought of standing in front of 200 people talking about his father felt impossible. He wasn't a public speaker. He was a mechanic. He worked with his hands, not his words. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's all I'm asking. After they hung up, Lucas sat on the back porch, nursing a beer and watching the sunset. Emma was inside, doing homework at the kitchen table, humming some songs she'd learned in music class. The notebook was sitting on the porch railing, where Lucas had left it earlier. He picked it up and flipped through the pages again, reading his father's notes, looking at the sketches, trying to understand what it all meant. On the last page, there was a drawing of a small garage. Underneath, his father had written, "This is where it starts. Not with money, not with recognition, just with the work." Lucas closed the notebook and made his decision. Basrans. The drive to Detroit took 8 hours. Lucas left early, before Emma woke up, leaving her with Mrs. Winters and a note promising pancakes when he got back. The highway stretched out in front of him, flat and gray and endless, the kind of road that gave you too much time to think. He thought about his father, about the hours they'd spent together in the garage, the quiet lessons that had never felt like lessons at all. He thought about the prototype, about how it had started as an idea and become something real, something that mattered. He thought about Emma, about the fight she'd gotten into, about the way she'd defended him without hesitation. She was 7 years old and already braver than he'd ever been. And he thought about Arya, about the apology she'd given, about the way she'd chosen to walk away from everything she knew because it was the right thing to do. By the time he pulled into Detroit, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that looked almost fake. The museum was smaller than he'd expected. A single-story building with brick walls and large windows, tucked between a community center and an old factory that had been converted into lofts. There was a sign out front, Detroit Auto Heritage Museum. Below that, in smaller letters, celebrating the builders who changed the world. Lucas parked and sat in the car for a moment, gathering himself. Then he got out and walked inside. Rachel Mora was waiting in the lobby. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 40, with short gray hair and paint-stained jeans. She smiled when she saw him and stuck out her hand. Lucas Hale. I'd recognize you anywhere. You look just like your father. Lucas shook her hand. You knew him? Met him once, years ago, at a trade show in Chicago. He was quiet, kept to himself. But everyone knew his work. She gestured toward the back of the museum. Come on, I'll show you what we've done. They walked through the museum, past displays of engines and chassis and photographs of people Lucas had never heard of. Rachel talked the whole time, explaining the history, the mission, the vision for what the museum could become. And then they turned a corner, and Lucas stopped. The prototype sat in the center of a large room, surrounded by soft lighting and informational panels. But it wasn't roped off, wasn't behind glass. It was just there, accessible, real. Rachel stood beside him. We wanted people to see it the way your father would have wanted, not as a trophy, as a teaching tool. Lucas walked closer, running his hand along the hood, feeling the metal under his palm. It's perfect, he said quietly. The unveiling is tomorrow. Are you ready? Lucas looked at the car, at the panels describing his father's work, at the photographs of the garage where it had all started. No, he said honestly. But I'll do it anyway. Rachel smiled. That's all anyone can ask. The next morning, Lucas stood in front of 200 people and told them about his father. He told them about the garage, about the late nights and early mornings, about the way his father had taught him to see engines not as machines, but as puzzles, each piece connected to the next in ways that mattered. He told them about the prototype, about how it had taken 3 years to build, how his father had refused to cut corners, how every choice had been deliberate. And he told them about the lesson his father had taught him without ever saying it out loud, that some things are worth more than money, that value isn't measured in dollars, that the work itself is the point. When he finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping, and then another person, and then everyone. Lucas stood there, uncomfortable and overwhelmed, not sure what to do with the applause. So he just nodded and stepped back, letting Rachel take over, letting the moment pass. Afterward, people came up to him, shaking his hand, asking questions, telling him stories about their own fathers, their own garages, their own lessons learned. And in the middle of it all, Lucas saw Arya standing near the back of the room, smiling at him. She didn't come over, didn't interrupt. She just gave him a small wave and slipped out the door. Lucas found her in the parking lot, leaning against her car. You came, he said. I wasn't going to miss this. Arya looked at him. You did good in there. I barely knew what I was saying. That's why it worked. They stood there for a moment, the late afternoon sun warm on their faces. Thank you, Lucas said, for all of it, for the museum, for the second chance, for... Stop, Arya said gently. You don't owe me anything. I know, but I'm saying it anyway. Arya smiled. Okay, you're welcome. Lucas pulled out his keys. I should get back. Emma's probably driving Mrs. Winters crazy by now. Say hi to her for me. I will. He started to walk away, then stopped. Arya? She looked up. If you're ever in town, Lucas said, you should come by. Meet Emma. See the garage. We could, I don't know, have coffee or something. Arya's smile widened. I'd like that. Lucas nodded and got in his car. As he drove out of the parking lot, he glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Arya still standing there, watching him leave. And he thought about how strange it was that the worst moment of his life, the moment in the parking lot, the insult, the judgment, had led to this. To a museum that would protect his father's legacy, to a friendship he hadn't expected, to a version of himself that felt stronger, clearer, more certain about what mattered. The car rattled as he merged onto the highway. The mirror wobbled. The exhaust coughed. And Lucas drove home, feeling like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Emma was waiting on the porch when Lucas pulled into the driveway, still wearing her school clothes, backpack dumped by the door. She ran down the steps before he'd even turned off the engine. You're late, she said, pulling open the car door. Mrs. Winters made tuna casserole and it was gross. Lucas climbed out, stretching his back. 8 hours of driving had left him stiff. I told you I'd be gone all day. You said you'd be back for dinner. I said I'd try to be back for dinner. Emma crossed her arms. That's the same thing. It's really not. Lucas grabbed his bag from the back seat. How was school? Fine. We had a substitute and she didn't know anything. Tyler threw up in the cafeteria. Karma. What's karma? Nothing. Come on, let's get inside. They walked up to the house together, Emma chattering about the substitute teacher who'd let them have extra recess and the science project they were starting next week. Lucas listened with half his attention, the other half still in Detroit, still standing in that museum, still feeling the weight of 200 people watching him talk about his father. Inside, Mrs. Winters was doing dishes, humming something that might have been a hymn or a commercial jingle. She turned when they came in. Lucas, how was the trip? Good. Long. He set his bag down. Thanks for watching her. Oh, it's no trouble. She's an angel. Mrs. Winters dried her hands on a towel. There was a phone call for you, around 3 o'clock. A woman. She didn't leave her name, but she said she'd call back. Lucas frowned. Did she say what it was about? Something about an article. I wrote down the number. Mrs. Winters handed him a piece of paper with digits scrawled in shaky handwriting. She sounded important. Lucas looked at the number, didn't recognize it. Okay, thanks. After Mrs. Winters left, Lucas made Emma a grilled cheese while she sat at the table doing homework. Or pretending to do homework. Mostly she was drawing in the margins of her math worksheet. Daddy? Yeah? What were you doing in Detroit? Lucas flipped the sandwich. I told you. Museum stuff. But what kind of museum stuff? They put Grandpa's car on display. I went to see it. Emma looked up. The car he built? Yeah. The one everyone wants to buy? No one's buying it. It's staying at the museum. Emma considered this. Is it a nice museum? It's perfect. Did you tell them about Grandpa? Lucas slid the sandwich onto a plate and set it in front of her. I did. What did you say? Lucas sat down across from her. I told them he was a good man, that he built things because he loved building them, that he taught me everything I know. Emma took a bite of her sandwich, cheese stretching between the bread and her mouth. Do you miss him? Every day? Me too, even though I never met him. He would have liked you. Emma smiled through a mouthful of grilled cheese. I know. After dinner, Lucas called the number Mrs. Winters had written down. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. Stephanie Chen, New York Times. Lucas almost hung up. Hi, you called my house? Lucas Hale? Yeah. Thank you for calling back. I'm writing a piece on the Detroit Auto Heritage Museum unveiling. Your name came up. Several times, actually. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions. Lucas rubbed his face. I don't do interviews. It would only take 10 minutes. I'm specifically interested in your father's work. The prototype. What it means for independent automotive engineering. I already talked about that. At the museum. I know. I read the transcript, but I'd like to hear it from you directly, off the record, if you prefer. Lucas hesitated. He didn't like reporters. Didn't trust them. They had a way of turning simple things into stories that didn't quite match reality. Off the record? He asked. Completely. Fine, 10 minutes. Stephanie Chen asked good questions, not the surface-level stuff Lucas had expected. She wanted to know about his father's process, his philosophy, why he'd never pursued commercial success. She asked about Lucas's own work, about how he'd learned, about what it was like growing up with someone who saw the world in blueprints and compression ratios. Lucas answered carefully, trying not to say too much, trying to keep the parts that mattered private. "One last question," Stephanie said. "There's a rumor that you turned down multiple offers for the prototype. 8 figures, according to some sources. Is that true?" Lucas sighed. "It's not a rumor." "Can I ask why?" "Because it wasn't mine to sell, it was my father's, and he didn't build it to make money." "But you could have been set for life. Your daughter could have—" "My daughter doesn't need millions of dollars," Lucas said, his voice sharper than he intended. "She needs to know that some things matter more than money. That's what my father taught me. That's what I'm teaching her." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "That's a good answer," Stephanie said quietly. "Can I use that? On the record?" Lucas thought about it. "Yeah, you can use it." After he hung up, he sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling, wondering if he'd just made a mistake. Emma poked her head around the corner. "Was that the important lady?" "Yeah." "What did she want?" "To ask me questions." "About what?" "About Grandpa. About the car. About why I didn't sell it." Emma climbed onto the couch next to him. "What did you tell her?" "The truth." "Good." Emma leaned against him. "The truth is better." Lucas put his arm around her. "When did you get so wise?" "I told you. I've always been wise." They sat there until Emma fell asleep, her head heavy on his shoulder, her breathing slow and even. Lucas didn't move. He just held her, feeling the weight of her trust, the simplicity of this moment that had nothing to do with museums or articles or people who wanted something from him. This was what mattered. This was enough. The article came out 3 days later. Lucas didn't see it at first. He was under the hood of a Camaro, replacing a timing belt, when his phone started buzzing. Once, twice, 10 times in a row. He ignored it. By lunch, there were 47 missed calls and more text messages than he could count, most of them from numbers he didn't recognize. A few from Aria, one from Rachel Mora at the museum. Lucas wiped his hands and called Aria back. She answered on the first ring. "Have you seen it?" "Seen what?" "The article." "Lucas, you're on the front page of the Times." Lucas felt his stomach drop. "What?" "Hold on, I'm sending you the link." His phone buzzed. Lucas opened the message and clicked the link. The headline read, "The Man Who Said No to Millions." Below it was a photo of the prototype lit dramatically, and next to that a smaller photo of Lucas standing in the museum, mid-sentence, looking uncomfortable. He scrolled down and started reading. The article was good. Too good. Stephanie Chen had taken everything he'd said and turned it into something that sounded noble and principled and brave. She'd interviewed Rachel Mora, who'd talked about the importance of preserving independent engineering history. She'd interviewed Dominic Cross, who'd declined to comment but whose silence somehow made Lucas look even better. And she'd quoted Lucas directly. "My daughter doesn't need millions of dollars. She needs to know that some things matter more than money." Lucas stared at the words on the screen. "Lucas? You still there?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'm here. This is good. You know that, right? This is really good. I didn't want this. I know, but it's happening anyway. The museum's been flooded with calls, donations, people wanting to visit. Your father's name is trending on social media. Lucas, this is... I have to go," Lucas said, and hung up. He sat in the garage, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, and tried to process what was happening. He'd spent his entire life staying quiet, staying invisible, doing good work without needing recognition. And now, suddenly, he was the guy who'd said no to millions, the guy with principles, the guy everyone wanted to talk about. It felt wrong. It felt like the opposite of everything his father had taught him. His phone rang again. Another unknown number. Lucas turned it off. God. By the end of the week, Lucas couldn't leave the house without someone recognizing him. Not everyone, but enough. A guy at the grocery store who wanted to shake his hand, a woman at the gas station who asked for a photo, a kid at Emma's school whose dad had read the article and wanted to know if Lucas did consultations. Emma thought it was hilarious. "You're famous, Daddy." "I'm not famous." "You kind of are, though." Lucas carried the groceries to the car. "Famous people are on TV. I'm just in a newspaper." "Mrs. Parker showed the article to our whole class. She said you were an inspiration." Lucas groaned. "Great." "Tyler said his dad thinks you're dumb for not taking the money." Lucas stopped walking. "He said that?" "Yeah, but I told him Tyler's dad is dumb for thinking money is the most important thing." Emma grinned. "Then Tyler said his dad makes more money than you and I said. That's probably true, but at least you're not a jerk." "Emma, I didn't get in trouble. Mrs. Parker said I made a valid point." Lucas couldn't help it. He laughed. They loaded the groceries into the trunk, and Emma climbed into the back seat, still chattering about school and Tyler and how Mrs. Parker was thinking about doing a whole unit on people who made ethical choices. Lucas started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, the familiar rattle of the exhaust somehow comforting in the middle of all this chaos. His phone, which he'd turned back on, buzzed with another text. This one was from Aria. "Turn on channel 7. Now." Lucas frowned and pulled over. He opened the news app on his phone and found the live stream. A reporter was standing outside Bennett and Cross Global Consulting. Behind her, people were picketing with signs. "Protests began this morning," the reporter was saying, after an internal email from managing partner Dominic Cross was leaked to the press. In the email, Cross allegedly referred to Lucas Hale as short-sighted and suggested the firm should distance itself from what he called publicity stunts masquerading as ethics. Lucas stared at the screen. The camera panned to show the signs. "Corporate greed has no place here. Support independent builders." Lucas Hale did the right thing. "Cross has not yet responded to requests for comment," the reporter continued. "But sources inside the firm say several junior partners have resigned in protest, citing a toxic work culture that prioritizes profit over integrity." Lucas turned off the phone. Emma leaned forward. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Lucas said. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. Lucas had never wanted to be part of this. Never wanted to be the symbol of anything. He just wanted to protect his father's work. That was it. And now it had turned into something bigger, something he couldn't control. He pulled back onto the road and drove home, his mind racing. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Lucas sat on the back porch and called Aria. "I saw the news," he said when she picked up. "Yeah, it's a mess, and I didn't want this." "I know." Aria's voice was gentle. "But you didn't cause it. Dominic did. He could have just let it go, but he had to make it about himself, and now it's blowing up in his face." Lucas leaned back in his chair. "People are quitting?" "3 so far, and I've heard rumors there might be more. Turns out a lot of people have been unhappy for a long time. Your story just gave them a reason to finally walk away." "That's not my responsibility." "No, it's not. But it's happening anyway." Aria paused. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know. People keep calling, wanting interviews, wanting advice. Someone asked if I'd consider writing a book." "Are you going to?" "No." Aria laughed softly. "Good. You'd hate it." They sat in silence for a moment, the phone line crackling faintly. "Lucas," Aria said finally, "I know this isn't what you wanted, but maybe it's not all bad. Maybe some good comes out of it." "Like what?" "Like people remembering that there are things more important than money. Like your father's name being recognized. Like, I don't know, like hope." Lucas didn't respond. He wasn't sure he believed in hope, but he wanted to. "I should go," he said. "Okay. But Lucas?" "Yeah? You did the right thing. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." After they hung up, Lucas sat in the quiet, listening to crickets and the distant sound of traffic. The notebook was sitting on the table beside him. He picked it up and opened it to a random page. His father's handwriting stared back at him. "The work is the point. Not the applause, not the money, just the work." Lucas closed the notebook and went inside. The next morning, Lucas woke up to find a car parked in his driveway. Not just any car, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows and plates that probably cost more than his mortgage. He walked outside in his pajama pants and a t-shirt, coffee in hand. The driver's door opened and a man in his 60s stepped out. Expensive suit, silver hair, the kind of face that had spent decades in boardrooms. Lucas Hale? Who's asking? My name is Martin Voss. I'm the one who sent you your father's notebook. Lucas stiffened. How did you get my address? I have resources. Voss smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I wanted to meet you in person, to talk. About what? About your father, about the work he did, and about what happens next. Lucas took a sip of coffee. There is no next. I think there is. Voss gestured toward the house. May I come in? No? Voss didn't seem bothered. Fair enough. Then I'll be brief. I've been collecting your father's work for 20 years. Pieces of engines, sketches, anything I could find. The prototype was the crown jewel, but it's not the only thing Samuel Hale built. Lucas's grip tightened on his coffee mug. What are you talking about? Your father didn't just build one car, Lucas. He built 3. The prototype was the first. The other 2 were prototypes for a different project. Something experimental. Something that was never finished. Lucas felt the ground shift under him. That's not possible. It is. And I can prove it. Voss reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to Lucas. It was a photograph. Old. Faded. Showing a garage Lucas didn't recognize. And in the center of the garage, partially covered by a tarp, was a car. Lucas's hands shook as he unfolded the paper completely. In the corner, in his father's handwriting, Project Horizon, 1974. Where did you get this? Lucas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. From a private collection, an estate sale in Pennsylvania. The owner had bought the contents of a storage unit. Your father's storage unit. Voss watched him carefully. The cars are still there, both of them, untouched, waiting. Lucas couldn't breathe. Why are you telling me this? Because they belong to you, not to me, not to a museum, to you. Voss stepped closer. I'm offering you a deal. I'll fund the recovery, the restoration, everything. And in return, you tell the story. You let the world see what Samuel Hale was really capable of. Lucas looked at the photograph, at the car hidden under the tarp, at the piece of his father's life he'd never known existed. I need to think about it, he said. Voss nodded. Take your time. But not too much. The storage facility is being sold. If we don't act soon, those cars could be lost forever. He got back in his car and drove away, leaving Lucas standing in the driveway, holding a photograph that changed everything. Yes. Lucas didn't tell Emma, didn't tell Aria, didn't tell anyone. He just sat in the garage, staring at the photograph, trying to make sense of it. His father had built 3 cars. Not 1. 3. And Lucas had never known. He thought about the notebook, about all the sketches and designs, about the pages he'd read 100 times. Had he missed something? Had there been clues? He pulled out the notebook and started going through it again, page by page, looking for anything that mentioned Project Horizon. And then he found it. Tucked between 2 pages, so faint he'd missed it before, was a single line. For Lucas. When he's ready. Lucas sat back, the notebook trembling in his hands. His father had known, had planned this, had left these cars behind for Lucas to find. But why? Why hide them? Why not tell him? Lucas didn't have answers, but he knew one thing. He had to see those cars. He pulled out his phone and called the number Voss had left on the back of the photograph. Voss answered immediately. I was hoping you'd call. Where are they? Lucas asked. Pennsylvania. About 4 hours from you. I can have a truck ready tomorrow. No truck. I want to see them first. Alone. Voss hesitated. All right, I'll send you the address. And Voss? Yes? This isn't a deal yet. I'm just looking. Understood. Lucas hung up and sat in the silence, feeling the weight of what he was about to do. His father had left him a message, and after all these years, Lucas was finally ready to hear it. Bucken. The storage facility was in a town called Milford, tucked in the hills of western Pennsylvania. Lucas drove through winding roads and dense forest, the GPS guiding him to a place that felt like it had been forgotten by the rest of the world. The facility itself was a cluster of metal buildings, rusted and worn, surrounded by a chain-link fence. A hand-painted sign read, "Milford Storage, units available." Lucas parked and walked to the office. An old man sat behind the desk reading a newspaper that looked like it was from last week. "Help you?" the man asked without looking up. "I'm here to see Unit 47. The man finally looked at him. "You the Hale boy?" Lucas blinked. "How did you—" "Voss called, said you'd be coming." The man pulled a key from a drawer and tossed it to Lucas. "Units around back. Lock up when you're done." Lucas caught the key and walked around the building, his heart pounding. Unit 47 was at the end of a row, larger than the others, with a garage-style door instead of a regular lock. Lucas inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked, and he pulled the door up. It creaked as it rose, metal scraping against metal. And then Lucas saw them. 2 cars, side by side, covered in dusty tarps. He stepped inside, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. Slowly, carefully, he pulled the tarp off the first car. It was smaller than the prototype, sleeker. The body was finished, but there were gaps where the interior should have been. No seats, no dashboard, just the frame and the engine. Lucas moved to the second car and pulled off its tarp. This one was different, larger, heavier. The design was more aggressive, more experimental. And on the hood, engraved in small letters, was a name, Lucas. He stood there, staring at the car his father had built for him, and felt something break open inside his chest. His father had known, had believed that someday Lucas would find this place, would see these cars, would understand. Lucas knelt beside the car and ran his hand along the frame. "I'm here, Dad," he whispered. "I'm ready." Lucas spent 3 hours in that storage unit, just looking. He didn't touch anything beyond pulling off the tarps, didn't start the engines or check the mechanics. He just walked around the cars, studying them, trying to understand what his father had been thinking when he'd built them. The car with his name on it was unfinished. No interior, no wiring, just the shell and the engine block sitting there like a promise that had never been kept. Lucas knelt beside it and looked underneath, at the frame, at the welds his father had done by hand. Every joint was perfect, every measurement exact. This wasn't a hobby project. This was precision work, the kind that took years to master. Lucas pulled out his phone and took a few photos. Then he covered the cars back up, locked the unit, and drove home in silence. When he got back, Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table, tongue stuck out in concentration as she worked through a math problem. She looked up when he walked in. "Where were you?" "Pennsylvania." "Why?" "I had to see something." Emma put down her pencil. "Something important?" Lucas nodded. "Yeah, something important." "Can I see it?" Lucas sat down across from her. "Not yet, but someday." Emma studied his face. "Are you okay, Daddy?" "I don't know yet," Lucas said honestly, "but I will be." That seemed to satisfy her. She went back to her homework, and Lucas sat there watching her, thinking about the cars in Pennsylvania, about the choice he had to make, about what his father would have wanted. His phone buzzed. A text from Voss. "Well, what did you think?" Lucas stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. "I need more time." The response came immediately. "Take what you need. But remember, the facility sale closes in 2 weeks. After that, I can't guarantee those cars will still be there." Lucas set the phone down and rubbed his face. 2 weeks. 14 days to decide whether to bring his father's unfinished work into the light or let it disappear forever. Emma looked up again. "Daddy, you're doing that thing." "What thing?" "The thing where you think too hard and your face gets all scrunchy." Lucas couldn't help but smile. "Sorry." "It's okay. But you should probably stop. You'll get wrinkles." "I already have wrinkles." "Then you'll get more wrinkles." Lucas stood and kissed the top of her head. "Thanks for the warning." Yeah. The next few days were a blur. Lucas tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting back to Pennsylvania, to the cars, to the decision. Arya called twice. Lucas let it go to voicemail both times. He wasn't ready to talk about it yet. Wasn't ready to explain something he didn't fully understand himself. On the third day, Rachel Mora from the museum called. "Lucas, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "No, it's fine. What's up?" I wanted to let you know we've had an incredible response since the unveiling. Donations are up, attendance is up, and we've had several schools reach out about bringing student groups to see your father's work. Rachel paused. This is exactly what we hoped would happen. People are connecting with the story, with what it represents. Lucas leaned against his workbench. That's good. I'm glad. You don't sound glad. Lucas exhaled. I am. There's a lot going on right now. Anything you want to talk about? Lucas hesitated. Then, before he could stop himself, he told her. About Voss. About the storage unit. About the 2 unfinished cars his father had left behind. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? She asked finally. I don't know. Do you want my opinion? Yeah, I do. Your father left those cars for you, Rachel said. Not for a museum, not for collectors. For you. Whatever you decide, it should be because it's what you want, not what anyone else expects. Lucas felt something loosen in his chest. Thanks. Anytime. And Lucas? Whatever you decide, the museum will support you. No pressure, no judgment. After they hung up, Lucas stood in the garage surrounded by tools and half-finished projects and tried to figure out what he actually wanted. The easy answer was to walk away. Let Voss handle the recovery, the restoration, the whole thing. Lucas didn't need more cars, didn't need more attention, didn't need more people asking questions about his father's legacy. But the harder answer, the one that sat heavy in his gut, was that maybe his father had left those cars unfinished on purpose. Maybe they weren't meant to be pristine museum pieces. Maybe they were meant to be projects, lessons, things Lucas could build with his own hands, the same way his father had taught him. Maybe they were meant to be shared. Lucas pulled out his phone and called Emma's school. Hi, this is Lucas Hale. I need to speak with Mrs. Parker. Bang. Mrs. Parker met him in the school parking lot during lunch recess. She was younger than Lucas had expected, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and paint stains on her jeans. Mr. Hale, Emma talks about you constantly. Lucas managed a smile. Hopefully good things. Mostly good. Mrs. Parker's eyes crinkled. She's very proud of you, especially after that article. Lucas shifted his weight. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. Emma mentioned you were thinking about doing a unit on ethical choices. I am. I thought it might be good for the kids to think about values, what matters beyond money and success. Lucas nodded. What if I could offer something more hands-on? Mrs. Parker tilted her head. I'm listening. I have access to 2 vintage car prototypes, unfinished builds. My father started them, but he never got to complete them. Lucas took a breath. What if we turned them into a class project? The kids could learn about engineering, problem-solving, working with their hands, and at the end, we'd have something real, something they built. Mrs. Parker's eyes widened. You're serious? Completely. Mr. Hale, that would be, the logistics alone. I've thought about it. We'd need space, tools, supervision, but I could teach them, guide them through it, show them what my father showed me. Mrs. Parker crossed her arms, thinking. This would take months, maybe a year. I know. And you're willing to commit that kind of time? Lucas thought about his father, about the hours they'd spent together in the garage, the lessons that had never felt like lessons, about Emma, watching him, learning from him the same way. Yeah, he said, I am. Mrs. Parker smiled. Then let's make it happen. Os Gates. It took 2 weeks to get approval from the school board, another week to find a space, an old auto shop that had closed down, donated by a local business owner who'd read the article and wanted to help. By the time everything was in place, Lucas had a plan. The cars would be brought from Pennsylvania. The class would be split into teams. Each team would handle a different aspect of the build. Engine, interior, wiring, bodywork. Lucas would supervise, teach, guide. But the kids would do the actual work. Emma was beside herself with excitement. We're going to build a car, Daddy. You're going to help build a car? Lucas corrected. There's a difference. But I get to use tools? Yes. Real tools? Yes. This is the best thing ever. Lucas laughed. Don't get too excited. It's going to be hard work. I don't care. It's still the best. The first day of the project, Lucas stood in the old auto shop, surrounded by 23 third graders who were bouncing off the walls with energy. The two cars sat in the center of the room, still covered, waiting. Mrs. Parker clapped her hands. "All right, everyone, settle down. Mr. Hale has something to show you." Lucas stepped forward, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on him. He'd spoken in front of 200 people at the museum, but this felt different. These were kids. Emma's classmates. They didn't care about his father's legacy or the article in the Times. They just wanted to see what was under the tarps. "Okay," Lucas said. "Before we start, I want to tell you a story about my dad." The room quieted. "My dad wasn't famous. He didn't work for a big company. He didn't have a lot of money, but he was one of the best builders I've ever known. And you know why?" A girl in the front row raised her hand. "Because he was smart? That's part of it. But the real reason is because he cared. He didn't build things to impress people or to make money. He built things because he loved the work. Because every bolt and every weld mattered to him." Lucas walked over to the first car and pulled off the tarp. The kids gasped. "This," Lucas said, "is a car my dad started building 40 years ago. He never finished it. And now we're going to finish it for him, together." A boy in the back raised his hand. "What if we mess it up?" "Then we fix it," Lucas said simply. "That's how you learn. You try. You mess up. You try again." Emma raised her hand. "What if we make it better than Grandpa would have?" Lucas smiled. "Then we make it better." He'd like that. He pulled the tarp off the second car, the one with his name engraved on the hood. "This one," Lucas said quietly, "was meant for me. My dad built it so I'd have something to work on, something to learn from. And now I'm passing that on to you." The room was silent. Then Tyler Morrison, the kid who'd made fun of Lucas's car, raised his hand. "Mr. Hale?" Lucas tensed. "Yeah? I'm sorry for what I said about your car." Lucas looked at the kid, small, nervous, eyes down, and felt the anger he'd been carrying dissolve. "It's okay," Lucas said. "You didn't know, but now you do." Tyler nodded, relieved. Mrs. Parker stepped forward. "All right, everyone, Mr. Hale is going to split you into teams. Listen carefully and follow instructions. This is going to be a long project, but if we work together, we're going to build something amazing." Bag. The months that followed were messy, chaotic, loud. The kids argued over who got to use which tools. They made mistakes, stripped bolts, cross-threaded screws, installed parts backwards. Lucas spent half his time teaching and the other half preventing disasters. But slowly, the cars started to take shape. Emma's team worked on the interior of the first car, measuring and cutting fabric for the seats. Tyler's team handled the wiring, tracing circuits, and connecting relays under Lucas's supervision. Another group worked on the engine, learning about pistons and valves and the way everything fit together like a three-dimensional puzzle. Lucas was there every afternoon, 5 days a week, teaching kids who'd never held a wrench how to build something real. Aria came to visit halfway through the project. She walked into the shop and stopped, staring at the controlled chaos. "This is incredible," she said. Lucas wiped grease off his hands. "This is madness." "Same thing." Aria walked over to the first car where Emma was carefully stitching leather onto a seat frame. "How's it going, Emma?" Emma looked up. "Hi, Miss Bennett. I'm making seats. Want to help?" "I would love to, but I don't know how." "That's okay. Mr. Hale says not knowing is the first step to learning." Aria glanced at Lucas. "Smart kid." "She gets it from her mom," Lucas said. They stood there for a moment, watching the kids work, listening to the sound of tools and laughter and questions being asked and answered. "You did something good here," Aria said quietly. "Your father would be proud." Lucas didn't respond. He just watched Emma thread a needle, tongue stuck out in concentration, completely absorbed in the work. Yeah, he thought. Maybe he would be. The project took 10 months. By the time they were done, both cars were finished. Not perfect. There were uneven welds and mismatched paint in places where the kids had made mistakes and fixed them. But they ran. The engines turned over. The lights worked. The seats were upholstered, the wiring connected, the bodywork complete. On the last day, the school held an unveiling. Parents came. Local news showed up. Even Stephanie Chen from the Times sent a reporter. Lucas stood in front of the crowd with Emma beside him, feeling the weight of what they'd accomplished. Mrs. Parker handed him the microphone. "I'm not good at speeches," Lucas said, "so I'll keep this short. These cars were built by 23 kids who didn't know anything about engineering when we started. They learned by doing, by trying, by making mistakes and fixing them. And in the process, they learned something more important than how to build a car." He paused, looking at the kids lined up in front of him. "They learned that value isn't about money or status or impressing people. It's about the work, about caring enough to do something right, about building things that matter, even when no one's watching." He handed the microphone to Emma. She looked up at him, eyes wide. "What do I say?" "Whatever you want." Emma took the microphone and turned to the crowd. "My grandpa built things because he loved building them," she said, her voice small but clear. "And my dad taught us to do the same thing, so now we built these cars. And they're not perfect, but they're ours. And that makes them perfect enough." The crowd applauded. Lucas put his hand on Emma's shoulder and felt something settle deep in his chest. This was what his father had wanted. Not fame, not recognition, just the work, passed down, shared, given freely to the next generation. After the ceremony, Voss approached him. "You turned down my funding," Voss said. "Use school resources instead. Why?" Lucas looked at the cars, at the kids posing for photos beside them, at Emma showing her seat stitching to anyone who would look. "Because this was never about the cars," Lucas said. "It was about what they represented, and I didn't want to turn that into another transaction." Voss studied him for a long moment, then he nodded. "Your father would have done the same thing." "I know." Voss handed him an envelope. "This is the deed to the storage unit. It's yours now. No strings. Whatever's left in there, it belongs to you." Lucas took the envelope. "Why?" "Because some things are worth more than money," Voss said simply. "Your father taught me that, even if I didn't understand it at the time." He walked away, leaving Lucas standing there, holding a piece of paper that felt heavier than it should. Ishag. That night, Lucas sat on the back porch with the envelope unopened beside him. Emma was inside, asleep, exhausted from the day's excitement. The house was quiet except for the crickets and the distant sound of traffic. Arya's car pulled up. She got out and walked over, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. "Thought you might need this," she said, handing him one. "Thanks." She sat down beside him. "Hell of a day." "Yeah." "You okay?" Lucas took a sip of coffee. It was terrible. Gas station brew, burnt and bitter. He loved it. "I've been thinking," he said, "about my father, about what he wanted. I spent so long trying to protect his legacy that I forgot the whole point of it." "Which is?" "That it's not supposed to be protected. It's supposed to be shared, used, built on." Lucas looked at the envelope. "He left me those cars because he wanted me to finish them, not preserve them, not lock them away. Finish them. So what are you going to do?" Lucas opened the envelope and pulled out the deed. Along with it was a note, written in his father's handwriting. "Lucas, if you're reading this, it means you found what I left behind. Good. These cars are yours now. Not to sell. Not to hide. To build. To teach with. To pass on. The work is never finished. It just gets handed to the next person. Make sure Emma knows that. Make sure she understands. Dad." Lucas's hands shook as he set the note down. Arya leaned over and read it. "He knew. Even back then, he knew you'd find them." "Yeah. What does that feel like?" Lucas thought about it. "Like I've been carrying something heavy for a long time, and he just told me it's okay to put it down." They sat in silence for a while, drinking terrible coffee, watching the stars come out. "I'm going to keep teaching," Lucas said finally. "Every year. New kids, new projects. I'll use whatever's left in that storage unit. Parts, designs, whatever. And I'll make sure they know where it came from, who built it, why it matters." Arya smiled. "That sounds perfect. What about you? How's the nonprofit?" "Good. Hard, but good. I'm learning that helping people is a lot more satisfying than selling them things they don't need." Lucas raised his coffee cup. "To second chances." Arya clinked her cup against his. "To second chances, Bots." 3 years later, Lucas stood in the same auto shop, now officially renamed the Samuel Hale Workshop for Young Builders. The space had grown. More tools, more workstations, more kids. Emma, now 10, was teaching a group of first graders how to use a socket wrench, her voice patient and clear. She'd grown into her role as assistant instructor, taking it as seriously as Lucas took his own work. Tyler Morrison was there too, now a regular volunteer helping younger kids with wiring projects. He'd apologized to Lucas at least a dozen more times over the years, and Lucas had finally told him to stop. The kid had learned. That was what mattered. Rachel Mora had arranged for the Detroit Museum to loan parts and tools to the workshop, creating a partnership that brought students from all over the state to see what was being built. And Aria had quit the nonprofit after 2 years to start her own consulting firm, one that helped small businesses and independent builders get funding and support without selling their souls in the process. She stopped by the workshop once a month, always bringing coffee, always staying longer than she planned. Lucas's car, the same rusted sedan that had started all of this, still sat in the parking lot. He'd been offered countless replacements over the years. Free upgrades from dealerships who wanted the publicity, donations from collectors who wanted to be associated with his story. He'd turned down every single one. The car ran fine. It got him where he needed to go. And every time Emma climbed into the back seat, she understood that some things had value that couldn't be measured in money. On this particular afternoon, a reporter from a national magazine showed up, asking for an interview about the workshop's success. Lucas almost said no, but Emma nudged him. "Come on, Daddy, tell them about Grandpa." So Lucas sat down and answered questions about his father, about the cars, about the kids who came through the workshop every year, learning to build things with their hands, learning that value came from the work itself, not the applause that followed. "What do you hope these kids take away from this experience?" the reporter asked. Lucas thought about his father, about the lessons he'd learned in a garage that smelled like oil and metal, about the notebook full of designs that had never been meant for museums or collectors, about the work that was never finished, just handed to the next person. "I hope they learn that what you build matters less than why you build it," Lucas said. "That doing something right is more important than doing something impressive, and that the most valuable things in life are the ones you can't sell." The reporter scribbled notes. "That's a good answer. It's the only answer that matters." After the interview, Lucas walked through the workshop, checking on projects, answering questions, making sure everyone was safe. Emma was helping a girl named Sophie install a carburetor, her hands steady, her instructions clear. Lucas watched her and felt something like peace. His father had built cars because he loved building them, and now Lucas was teaching others to do the same. The work wasn't about money or fame or proving anything to anyone. It was about the simple, stubborn belief that some things were worth doing just because they were worth doing. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. And it was enough. That evening, Lucas and Emma sat in the old sedan, engine idling, waiting for the heater to kick in. They'd just finished locking up the workshop, and the winter air was cold enough to sting. "Daddy? Yeah, sweetheart? Do you think Grandpa would like what we're doing with the workshop?" Lucas looked at her. She was growing up too fast, already asking the big questions, already thinking about legacy and meaning and what it all added up to. "I think he'd love it," Lucas said. "Even though we're not selling anything, even though we're not making money?" "Especially because of that." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good, because I don't want to sell stuff. I just want to build things." Lucas started driving, the familiar rattle of the exhaust filling the silence. "You know what the best part is?" Emma said after a while. "What's that?" "Tyler's not mean anymore, and Sophie said her dad read about the workshop and now he's teaching her how to fix bikes. And Mrs. Parker said 3 other schools want to start programs like ours." Lucas smiled. "That is pretty good." "It's better than good. It's like," Emma paused, searching for the word. "It's like Grandpa's cars, but for people. You built something, and now it's spreading." Lucas felt his throat tighten, out of the mouths of children. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I guess it is." They drove home through streets that were familiar and safe, past houses where people were having dinner and watching TV and living ordinary lives that mattered in ordinary ways. And Lucas thought about the moment in the parking lot years ago when Aria had mocked his car, when Emma had held his hand tighter, when he'd walked away without defending himself because defending himself had never been the point. He thought about how that single moment had led to everything that came after. The museum, the workshop, The kids learning to build with their hands. The legacy his father had left, not in things, but in lessons. Value wasn't about what you owned. It was about what you gave, what you taught, what you left behind for the people who came after you. That was what his father had understood. That was what Lucas had learned. And that was what he was passing on to Emma and to every kid who walked through the workshop doors. When they got home, Emma ran inside to start her homework. Lucas sat in the driveway for a moment, looking at the car that had been judged and mocked and dismissed by people who didn't understand what they were looking at. It was still rusted, still rattling, still held together with duct tape in places where the original parts had given out. But it had gotten him here. To this moment, to this life, to a place where he could look back and see that every choice he'd made, every no he'd said to money, every yes he'd said to principle, had been worth it. Lucas got out of the car and patted the hood gently. "Thanks," he said to no one in particular. Then he went inside where Emma was waiting, where dinner needed to be made, where life was happening in all its messy, imperfect, beautiful complexity. And he was okay with that. More than okay. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. Because in the end, it wasn't about the car, it wasn't about the money, it wasn't about the recognition or the articles or the people who finally understood what they'd been looking at all along. It was about the work, the people. The legacy you built not in steel and chrome, but in the hearts and minds of the people who learned from you. That was what lasted. That was what mattered. That was what his father had known all along. And now, finally, Lucas knew it too.